Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Off Leash Podcast with Dr. Pete. I am your co-host, Molly Van Branken. Dr. Pete is sitting across from me, and we are so glad that you joined us for today's show. Remember, we're not here to say what you want us to say. We're here to be an advocate for you and your pet. So,
my motto.
Sorry if we offend some people. We've offended some people on some recent podcasts.
Well, not that bad. Did we?
You say shit that offends people, so... that's why we do the intro.
That's why we do the intro.
We're not here to say what you want us to say. We're here to be an advocate for your pet.
Yeah,
so.
I think the one time I was talking about there's more dogs die from being overweight than heartworms. I'll bet that hit a few nerves.
I was just in the vet clinic. There were some fat dogs.
Yep, and
fat.
And I will stand by that comment. And I think there's a ton of veterinarians that I'll be told feel exactly the same way.
Mm-hmm.
And my point is that you bring them in there and you tell them, hey, your dog's teeth look good and you got your heartworm check. You don't have heartworms or you don't have Lyme or Ehrlichia anaplasmosis and none of that stuff. Have a nice day. Well, a dog ain't going to have a nice day if he's 25, 30 pounds overweight. Eventually he's going to need to be 7 or 8 years of age. He's going to be so stiff he can't get around or she can't get around. And so that's our job to do, if there's things to criticize, that's our job to do the criticisms. Yeah. Yep.
I agree. So what do you want to talk about today? I know we're talking about we're 5 years. Yeah. 5 years in business.
Kind of our anniversary. So we started making dog food in 2019 at the end of 2019. Now we're in 2025.
And for our Voyagers or listeners on here that don't know, Dr. Pete started Voyager Dog Food Company, which is a chelated copper-free dog food.
Sure.
Most dog foods on the market do not have a chelated copper-free option. They all have the chelated copper, like copper sulfate, copper protonate, copper chelate, which Dr. Pete believes is...
Well, there just got to be too many things that were wrong with what people were doing. They're putting chelated copper in dog foods. And by the way, here's the way this works. I mean, I tell people this, they come in, they have an high ALT, and we frog around, and I change the food, and the dog gets better. And and I tell them, I said, well, when you go in the pet food store, you're going to see this. You're going to see that there's a lot of people, there's almost every diet has it in there. And they kind of shake their head and smile, and then they come back. And after we get all done with this, they'll come in the office and say, you know what? And I said, no what? And they're like, well, we went to the pet store the other day, and every single food had chelated copper or copper protonate or
and you said, I
copper
told you
sulfate,
so.
Copper sulfate. And I said, well, is this the point where I'm supposed to act surprised? And they're like, well, we were surprised. And I'm like, no, I'm not surprised. I mean,
you've already gone through that, though.
I know.
I think you were surprised in the moment when you first figured it out.
Well, yeah. I mean, I've been reading labels. So I'd read labels my whole life. So I knew it's in there. I almost knew the time that they changed it, which was the late 90s. And I was like, what are they putting caustic powder in there for? And I thought, well, somebody knows more than I do.
And for our listeners that don't know what caustic powder is.
Copper sulfate. And it's what they used to... It's a veterinary product we use to get proud flesh off a horse's legs. It eats the flesh right off the leg. Mm-hmm. Yeah, really? Okay, so we're going to put something on the horse that eats the flesh off. Now, if it eats the flesh off, it'd probably be a good idea to put it in the food with the name caustic powder. Mm-hmm. Caustic powder. So it made no sense. But if you'd have told me I was going to make dog food 10 years ago, I would have said...
you're crazy.
You're out of your mind. Mm-hmm. And then we would have proceeded to drug test you. But... as it turns out, there's other things wrong too, that there's beef, milk, and wheat in dog food, and I didn't think that should be in because we understood just after years and years of practice that those are probably the three most common things. Probably catches 92% of the food allergies, beef, milk, and wheat. And then
grain-free bullshit.
And the grain-free bullshit, yeah, that's right. That is like, okay, grain-free, it's like, it's like that question, are you still dating your sister? There's no right answer to that one. And
what the?
So it's like grain-free. Are you on grain-free? And, what should I say? Should I say yes or no? Is there a right answer to this?
Some people tell me that they feed grain-free because their dog is allergic to grain.
But they don't know that. There's no, so you need to understand, there's no test. You can send these blood tests in to see if they're allergic to certain things.
Whoa. What about the people that are like, well, I got my dog allergy tested?
Yeah, that doesn't work.
Why?
So those are ELISA tests. So they work really good for insects. They work really good for house dust. They work good for all the pollens.
But there's nothing that says like your dog is allergic to.
So if you have your
brewer's
dog,
rice
if they
or egg,
if they take a blood test from your dog, okay, and they send it into a lab and they say it was allergic to carrots and buffalo, you just wasted your money. And because, and here's the thing, when that piece of paper comes back, people fold that up and put it in someplace to where they can get back and look at it every time. And they carry it around like it's the Magna Carta.
Well, don't they have those tests for humans?
Well, I don't believe they do have that test for humans. Now, they have intradermal testing. I don't know if you've ever seen that done.
I thought it was the thing where they prick the blood with like something
and
they inject a little bit.
So you put that, so what they do is they make a grid. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. And then you inject it, and then you read the wheels. You read to see if there's a reaction like 48 hours or 24 hours later. I don't know, because they don't do that anymore. But that may be fairly accurate. That could be fairly accurate. You're actually taking protein and putting it in the skin.
Okay. So why do vets do the allergy testing on dogs if it's not?
The other stuff's real labor intensive and kind of hard to read, and people didn't like having their dogs all shaved up and everything to do it because you can't put it someplace where there's hair.
So there is a way to do it to dogs.
You have to make a little football field on the dog and then
do those little tests.
Well, and then you put a little lots of ink, bing, 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 and then usually like maybe 8, 8, 8, 8, and then so you've got, I guess, what is that, 32? So you put 32 antigens in there, and there's probably a line of food and a line of pollen and house dust and fleas and all that sort of stuff. So then you're trying to, and I think that's fairly accurate. You got to make sure they're off. I'll be honest with you, I'm not sure everybody knows this, but you have to be off all steroids and any other things like Apoquel.
What are the steroids? Oh, because they diminish the allergic reaction.
Right. They give you a false negative.
I see.
So then they send the blood in, and then people get this thing, and they just say, well, we'll just throw the food in, and if we get some reactions on the food, and then they hand that to the client. And almost every meeting I've ever been that a dermatologist does is, don't waste your money on blood testing for food allergies. Even the food allergies, if you get the right food allergy company, they'll tell you not to waste your money on it, but they sell it because people are requesting it. So that's the thing. So the food allergies. So getting back to the original conversation, we just took copper out of the dog food, put grain in, and then tried to avoid beef, milk, and wheat, which are the three most common. Some people say, well, my dog's allergic to chicken. I would agree. There are some dogs who are allergic to chicken. I think it's a distant fourth. Mm-hmm. I think if we looked at 1,000 dogs on a beef diet and 1,000 dogs on a chicken diet, overwhelmingly there'd be more dogs with the beef diet that reacted. There'd be a few dogs with the chicken diet. Now, as long as you can recognize that your dog's allergic to chicken, then your dog's allergic to chicken, and that's just the way it is.
Chicken protein, though.
Chicken protein.
Let's elaborate. Let's elaborate for our listeners.
Yeah, because
that it's not, because people see chicken fat and they're like, my dog's allergic to chicken, and I'm like, it's not the fat.
And that's what we tell them. It's not the fat. The only thing you can be allergic to is
protein.
Is the protein fraction of any substance.
So explain this to me: how dogs can be allergic to wheat. Is that a protein?
Yeah, because there's protein in wheat.
Okay, because you say the beef, milk, wheat part, and I understand milk because milk is kind of like a protein.
It has protein in it, sure.
Yeah, but the wheat threw me off. I was like, what protein is in wheat?
Everything has protein in it. Everything has some protein in it.
What about chicken fat? Does that have protein in it?
None. Exactly zero. But any of the ingredients in those things, well, let's put it this way. I think if you're putting copper sulfate in dog food, there's not any protein in that. Now, if you're putting it in a copper proteinate, I'll bet there's a protein in there, and I don't even know how they make copper proteinate, but copper proteinate is just as bioavailable as copper sulfate.
Right.
So when you turn the bag over and you look and see there's copper on there, and you're going to buy it for your dog, you're asking your dog to play roulette. Mm-hmm. Okay, and that means you put the ball in as the wheel goes around, and if it turns on green, your dog loses. If it turns on black or red, your dog wins. And it's probably even more likely that we think that it isn't just 1 or 2% of the dogs, that it's a substantial percent of the dogs.
Yeah.
So it isn't just like, and really we've been collecting data, and that's going to come out fairly soon. And when that comes out, everybody will be aware of what's going on now. Mm-hmm. Not everybody, but anybody who can read this abstract and understand what's being said. So this is our 5th year of doing this, and our goals are exactly the same as they were when we made the first bag. No beef, no milk, no wheat. No copper proteinate or copper sulfate in there, no chelated coppers, and grain inclusive. So we've held to those standards. and we're gonna and that's the one thing. Anybody's ever been in business, do you get it all right to begin with? No, you don't. But we did as far as the product was concerned. We got the product right off the go, and so the way we advertised it and all that sort of stuff, we had to sort of dyno tune that to a certain extent. But we're at this point now where we're at an inflection point that this is starting to become a movement. And we're getting more and more calls every week from veterinarians who understand this now. Now, how many people in the veterinary profession understand it? Not very many. But You know what? It's a lot more than it was last year. And last year was a lot more than it was the year before.
Well, what's a way for clients if they want to educate their veterinarians to go in and tell them about it?
Well, there's all sorts of articles written about it. And
how would you feel if you were, because I understand that the veterinarians are kind of like set in their ways about, no, I know what I know.
Sure.
And I don't think that they're very receptive.
Especially
if a client comes in and tells them.
Well, here's what really happens. There's two kinds of situations. Where you come in and try to tell a veterinarian that copper sulfate and proteinaceous copper is a problem in dog foods. Okay, and they'll go, well, maybe there is, maybe there isn't. We don't know that, okay? And we're unsure of how many dogs have it, and it just goes on and on and on and on.
Right.
And they'll tell you there just hasn't been enough data done on this for them to establish what's going on. So that all being said, the other half is I have people who have had dogs who are copper storage dogs, and they say, they figure it all out, or they may go to a referral clinic and figure it all out. And I always tell them, and they said, well, I'm kind of disappointed in my veterinarian. Well, listen, your veterinarian sent you a referral clinic. They figured it out. Now, here's what you are obliged to do this. Mm-hmm. You are obliged to go back and show your veterinarian what happened here. Because really it was his or her problem to begin with. Mm-hmm. And then they booted it off to somebody. Or maybe they did the biopsy themselves. Or maybe they changed the food themselves. But there needs to be this, and we always talk about this in the clinic, is that it's my job to educate clients. It's my job to educate clients. But in reality, it's almost as incumbent upon the clients to educate me. So I say, here's what I think you got. Here's what I think we ought to do. You need to come back and tell me this is how it worked. I just had a conversation before we started this podcast right now, and about somebody that had a condition on a medication they were on. But they were sharing that with me and told me how long it took, blah, blah, blah. So I learned a little bit from them. They learned a little bit from me. So if you are in fact a person whose dog had copper storage disease, or you had liver disease in your dog, and you changed the diet and it got better, then you need to go back to your veterinarian and tell he or she what happened. And that's the big thing right there.
Right.
And that's the thing that I think that's one of the things we're challenged with as a company, to make sure that the things our clients learn, that they can share that
accurately share it back to their veterinarian.
Right. And then what happens is the veterinarian sees this 2 or 3 times. Okay, once, maybe not a big deal. Not going to worry about. Twice, well, I kind of look bad on this case. Maybe I shouldn't look bad on this case.
Yeah, 3 times. Okay, I got to figure my shit out.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah. So now that we're going into year 5, what are your goals moving forward with the company?
You have to educate people. Still the same goals. Educate people. And we're getting ready to do that with probably an abstract before too long. So I think when that comes out, then people can look at that and it may be, there's been a number of studies that indicated this. And so when you take one of these studies or another one of these studies or another one of the studies and you look at it and then you're like, well, I'm not sure, blah, blah, blah. You put all 3 of these together. If you're very smart at all, you're going to figure this out. Mm-hmm. You look at all 3 studies, boom, put it together, you got what you got. A lot of people working on this. Texas A&M's working on it. Colorado State's working on it. Cornell's working on it. Michigan State's working on it.
Who's working against you?
That's a good question. You know what? I'm almost hesitant to tell you this, but an independent nutritionist, they're probably, we have a couple of those working with us right now, and they're working with us. They're working for us and with us. Okay, we're doing this all together. The other people who are working for other dog food companies are actually kind of trying to say, no, it's no big deal, because they don't. You know how you'd feel if you were writing out all these recipes and it had all this stuff in it, and it finally came out that you probably screwed up. Mm-hmm. You know how that feels?
Not good. That'd probably be a career ender.
Yeah, well, you know how this works. It's like you and your brother. It wasn't my fault. I didn't do that. That wasn't me.
Well, it's never my fault.
It's never my fault. That's right. Well, it is your fault. It's your fault to the extent that if the literature was out there and you ignored it and you did it, you should be forced to wear a dunce cap for a while. So there's going to be some veterinary nutritionists that should have to wear a dunce cap when this all gets done. There should be some, and I guess the veterinary nutritionists, if I understand what I'm hearing from everybody, they're split kind of down the middle on this whole thing. And really, in the end, there'll be enough stuff published that it's like, you know.
Do you think that they're split down the middle because they're getting paid, some of them?
Well, it depends on who is paying them. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I think if you were a Democrat and you were working on some Republicans' re-election committee, you know, you got to change your spots for a while. And I think that's kind of what happens here. So you take the company line and you tell the company jokes, and that's kind of the way it goes. And I feel bad about that because I think that in the end, when they all figure out how many dogs were affected by this, that they're going to be pretty disgusted with themselves.
Do you have an estimation of how many dogs?
I got an estimation. I'm not going to share it with you today. But
okay. Maybe in the future?
Maybe in the future. It's significant.
Well, do you want to lighten things up a little bit and do some music?
Sure. Let's do that.
All right. Do the song of the day. You can tell me about this song.
Well, it's got a lot of horns in it. It's back in the 60s.
So this is Bill Deal
and the Rondells.
On the Rondells.
Yeah. They're like a show band that became popular. And a show band's a band that's got like 7, 8, 9, 10 guys in it. And hear all the horns and stuff?
Yeah, I can hear it.
Yeah, and these guys had like 3 hits, I think. May I, and I can't remember what the other hits were they had, but this is the one that always comes to mind every time I hear their name. And but it's a fun song. It's kind of snappy.
Do you have any history about them?
Nope, not really, other than they were a show band out of the 60s, 70s. And I think they maybe were from New Jersey. I don't remember, but I think it was East Coast type stuff.
Interesting.
Doobie-doo. Doobie-doo, yep. Anyway, I like that band. They were a good band, and they have a lot of horns. And really, back then, Chicago came out. They had a lot of horns in their stuff. And really, horns weren't a really common thing. They used to play saxophone stuff in the 50s, you know, with bands and stuff. But this big, fat sound like you hear right here.
Yeah. All right. So as far as the next step for Voyager, we're just going to start educating veterinarians,
right?
Hopefully giving our clients the right information to pass on to their veterinarians and to tell other people. And
well, you know, one of the things I think the moves we make are sometimes, you know, incumbent upon what the moves you make are. So in other words, when clients call and say they want treats, so we've had clients want treats, now we have treats. And now people say they want soft treats, so we're working on soft treats. So people said they would like a canned dog food that didn't have copper sulfate or proteinaceous copper, and so we're working on that now. I don't know what that's going to look like exactly. I got some ideas, but and then we'll probably try to make a diet that doesn't have chicken in it, different protein source. So we're working on that right now. So
agreed.
It isn't. So we're working on stuff all the time, and just so you know, it's a lot of work doing that because you got to figure out what's going to work, what's not going to work. Then you got to make a bag, and then you got to design the bag.
There's a lot of work to it.
There's a lot of work. And you have it all, having it other people oversee what's on the bag.
But if our listeners have any ideas for products or anything that they would like, you can email myself, Molly, at VoyagerDogFoodCo.com and tell me your ideas. Submit any requests that you have. As a matter of fact, starting in the new year, if you have any requests for podcast topics, you can email me at that email.
Yeah, we cross the same ground sometimes. And sometimes there's things that, you know, would be concerning about, that you're concerned about. Or maybe you got, you know, little things like your dog's going to have puppies. Maybe we've talked about this before. I don't really remember. And here's what you would do. Here's the things you probably should think about. And in fact, I think
we did talk about that.
Yeah. But sometimes they come
requests,
into
questions, whatever.
Well, and you got to run. So what are we going to do with the run? Why is the run the run? Was it born the run, or it became the run after it was born? And so you have to kind of figure all those things out. And I think that's and people have questions. And then of course we have another thing where Dr. Pete's in house on Tuesdays, where you can
submit your questions on Instagram.
Yep,
if you go on Voyager Dog Food Co. on our Instagram and submit questions to Dr. Pete on Tuesday. Normally I post it Monday evening.
Well, here's how that works. I think, what do I have, a minute on that when I do that?
Yeah, you only have a minute on Instagram.
So there's sometimes I only know 20 seconds worth of information, and then sometimes I know about 8 minutes worth of it. So I'm never happy the way those turn out because I either feel like
want to answer more.
I want to
Sometimes
answer
we do
more.
part twos.
Part twos, that's right. Because it's and sometimes the questions are 2 parts. What about this? What about that? So, but we appreciate our clientele, and you're doing exactly the right thing. You're buying food for somebody else to eat, and what you're doing now is you're making the decision to buy the safest thing that you can feed them. The safest.
So if you have any requests or questions or anything, you can reach out to us. I'm going to get some outro music going so we can wrap this up.
Okay, very good. Just remember, we're all in this together. And so if you're looking for something, you need something, we'll make it if we can. Provide an answer for you if we can.
All right, guys. Anything else?
No, not really. This is
your song.
My main guy here, Marvin Gaye.
We sure appreciate you guys listening along with us today, and we hope you've been able to share some information with you that will help you love your animals as much as they love you. Don't forget, always treat the treatable and prevent the preventable. We will catch you guys on the next one.
See you.